Hello, Kenku. Today I want to talk about depth. People are horribly complex and unimaginably deep. Sonder is a word that was coined in 2012 to describe the feeling of realizing that everyone around you has a life as vivid and complex as your own. That they're not just a cardboard cutout to fill your world, but they're actually main characters of their own. Now, you are very, very far from being able to experience this feeling yourself. Despite that, people are already feeling it for you. Just recently, dozens of people gathered to celebrate you. They shared stories and realizations that your habits are different with each person that cares for you. That even now, you are a complex and varied person. You just have no way of telling them that. I suppose that is really what I want to talk about. The problem of telling. The problem of showing the depth that exists. Sonder, the realization is one thing, but having the chance to then understand the complexities of a person is entirely separate. In these games that we play, we grow attached to our characters not because they're ours, but because we understand them the most. Sure, being the creator helps, but that just facilitates how well we know them. We are inside the skin of our PC and we can feel what they feel. It's harder to know the other PCs a fraction as well as we know our own. This lack of understanding goes further than simply not being the creator, though. It is difficult to know about the internal lives of other characters because it's hard for you to tell people about yours. Storytelling is difficult. Acting is difficult. People will work their entire lives practicing those art forms for us to exit a movie theater and just offhandedly say, I wasn't really buying whatever he was trying to do with that character. A character can be interesting, deep, conflicted, and passionate, and still be flat from the outside. If a team of trained storytellers can't always get it right, can we really expect Fred from HR to be able to subtly shade in the hues of their character during a monthly game? For argument's sake, let's say Fred is a fantastic role player and works their butt off to represent their character at the table. I can guarantee most of it will still be lost on the other players through no fault of Fred's. If game masters have trouble signaling the major plot points with neon signs that the whole party is supposed to be on the lookout for, people are going to have trouble catching all of the subtext that every other person at the table is trying to do outside of the spotlight. The combination of plot, jokes, mechanics, internalized planning, jokes, snacks, distractions, and a few more jokes tend to obscure a lot of those moments. I'm not saying don't do them, definitely do them, but many of the small RP moments will be pretty much just for yourself, if not one other player. So, if sharing the complexities of a character is hard, how do we do it? How are we supposed to show the moral quandaries and withheld desires locked deep behind the hardened visage of a closed-off war vet? Well, we crack it. We break the hardened visage to let others see what's going on inside. Subtle is fantastic, but if we want to guarantee other players the chance to see the depths of your character, we kind of just have to commit to it. Now, this doesn't have to be all revealing. There are different degrees that we can do this. We can find a soft spot, we can burst the barriers, or we can dig in deep to the core. Let's take a moment to talk about each of them. The first option is easiest to control, finding a soft spot. This is also the most common. Whether it is while journeying at watch during the night or in a long wait of a stakeout, you can find a moment to have with another character. You can either deliberately choose another player character to have this moment with, or you can just see an opportunity present itself as a scene has been set before you. The trick here is that you are going to ask the other character a question that may or may not be about them. Maybe you ask the other PC about some part of their backstory they referred to earlier. Maybe you ask them their thoughts on the current quest or an NPC you previously met. The key to this, though, is that you already have an idea of your own character's thoughts on this matter. You are asking them with the intention of revealing something about yourself. Now, if the other PC meets you with their own revelations, fantastic. Your two characters now have a deeper bond and shared understanding of each other. If they immediately delve into their own complexities, respect their response. You did ask them a question after all. The important thing is someone's character is being revealed here. Chances are you both will get to reveal portions of your own character. Softness spreading softness. If the other PC just says, I don't know, I'm waiting to see how this plays out, well, you still have your chance to reveal a bit of depth by giving away some of the hardness yourself in reference to a core idea that you've already committed yourself to wanting to expose another character to. The second option is less deliberate on your character's part, but still completely intended by you as the player. Layers to your character can be revealed by bursting the externalized barrier of what everyone else sees. In practice, the character has some reason to have their inhibitions lowered. Now, the most common way this is done by role-playing is role-playing drunkenness. It's easy, it's funny, it gets some laughs, and you can slide in a revelation, a spilled secret, or express an emotion otherwise out of character for your PC to do. It's easy, but not all players may be comfortable with it. Personally, I find it a bit uncomfortable when a character that doesn't drink suddenly does so for the joke, but that's just me. Complexity and layers and all that. Outside of the chemical crutch of this option, the next sub-option is emotions. Whether angry, sad, excited, or any other heightened emotion, be willing to have your character react to something realistically, or even hyper-realistically. People do not make smart decisions when extreme emotions are involved. Small things are blown up. That annoyance that was never big enough to bring up, bring it up. Those opinions that you never say out loud to keep the peace, let them spill out. The key part of this tactic, though, is that these are conversation starters. Whether you go the drunken or emotional route, the goal of this tactic is to get things out in the open. Whatever you spill out into the public view, whatever breaks through that external barrier that you have naturally presented for your character, don't shove it away immediately. If they are immediately shoved back away, they never get discussed and the complexity is never understood by the other players. I'm saying this from experience. I recently had a group of adventurers fall into the Feywild for a side arc interrupting their quest. During it, I had 2 moments of magically heightened emotions for the players. One was at the beginning as a foreshadowing, and the other was at the end for the greater encounter. The players went along with these encounters phenomenally. They reacted in character, dug up mud, troubled waters, but once it was over, things kind of shut down again. One of the characters tried to play the role of counselor or therapist, but the others battened down the hatches again afterwards and just tried to quiet everything down. There was the possibility of continued conversation of the things that were brought up later on in the story, until one of the characters died. Now, I want to be clear. The players did absolutely fantastic. The possible future RP in response to all of this is unknown. What I do know, though, is I may or may not have made a mistake here. Rather than giving narrative story beats for players to choose to emotionally react to, I gave them an encounter that had them emotionally react. The difference is slight, and to some players, it may be the same exact thing. The players got to choose how their characters emotionally reacted, which emotions, interpretations, responses. I just said crank it up to 10. The factor that determines whether I made a mistake or not is, were the players ready for the fallout of their choices? I threw them into the deep end of the RP pool. Sure, the emotional encounter foreshadowing was a sign. Sure, it's the Feywild, mischievous RP should be expected, but it certainly felt different than if a character had reacted to a tombstone or raged against an enemy that reminded them of someone from their past. It was just different. Something to keep in mind for future games to help me personally grow. The final option to reveal the depth of a character is by far my favorite, and has been for a long time. After the Feywild emotional encounter, my love of this version has increased twice over based on the required player buy-in. The means of reaching down deep to the character's core and revealing it to other PCs is a little spell called Zone of Truth. 95% of the time, Zone of Truth is used as an interrogation tool. Sometimes it's the adventurers trying to learn about upcoming threats or solving a mystery. Sometimes it's the characters having to carefully word their response to law enforcement and judges. For me, though, the glory of the Zone of Truth spell is the power of canon. When used in a D&D version of Truth or Dare, there is no lying to get out of an answer. If you respond to a question, the other characters know that that comes from the core of your character. However much of a jerk you have been recently, however shifty you are about money or your end goals with the party, Zone of Truth is a means of making revelations canon. All of those subtleties and subtext that sometimes get failed to come across, they're legit. Does your character have trouble making the right choices in life but say they want to be better? That statement is earnest. Do you have a confession to make but afraid the people in the party will think it's a manipulation? Say it with candor. Depth can be hard to portray because people see from the outside in and they don't know whether there's a deep core or a hollow void under the shell. By being able to establish this deep core that is unquestionable, especially one that may be antithesis to what they see on the outside, the amount of depth between core and shell can be gauged and then filled in by future actions. As I said at the beginning, people are horribly complex and unimaginably deep. It is because of that denseness and unfathomableness that we see an outside crust and inherently accept that that is the same all the way through. It is only by being shown those layers that we can truly understand someone. Sometimes that can be as simple as listening to them, asking questions and being willing to be vulnerable to find those connections. Other times, it's being present when things get ugly, and then being willing to talk about it after things cool down. And sometimes, not always, and certainly not with people you don't trust, but sometimes it's about believing someone when they tell you something that does not fit with your image of them at all, and trying to imagine them complexly enough to see how that truth fits into the rest of their being. This is my SendingKenku. The first step to getting to know someone better is accepting that no matter how long you've known them, you don't know them at all.